I'm Hayley Knighten. I'm a book reviewer for the online publication Watch, Play, Read, and I also co-host a YouTube channel, Horror Addicts, with my husband, Danny Knighten, right here.
I am Ellison. I am co-creator of the Cinema Triforce podcast. We've been talking about movies every week for the last 3 years, and been doing Crypticon almost as long. It's my 3rd year here, and I dig talking about stuff, so I really like the interactive nature of these things. It's been really fun.
My name is Kat. I am the head honey of the Horror Honeys. We are 11 women that write, podcast, freak out about horror on a daily basis for the last 2 years, I guess. This is my 6th Crypticon, but my 3rd, I guess, as a horror honey. I love possession movies, by the way. I'm obsessed with possession movies. It's my thing.
My name is Jennifer Brozek. I am a full-time editor, author, game designer, small press publisher. I focus on dark speculative fiction. I have seen a lot in the slush pile that I would like to talk about not doing, and doing right. I have a booth down in the dealer's room at 204 with Evil Girlfriend Media and Apocalypse Inc. Productions. So if you have questions after this,
I still need to visit you.
Yes, you do. You've got a magazine that's really cool. Thank you. I'm actually there all day tomorrow, so come by, come talk, look at the books. Now, the first question I'm going to have for the panelists is, we are very, very excited, we as a general mem, very excited about having possession as a trope. The thing that I want to discuss first is, what do you think it is a metaphor for on basically a spiritual and a physical level? So, Hayley?
My favorite possession movies are the ones where they do use it as a metaphor, and I think I've seen it in a few different ways. One I saw recently, which I thought was really good, was The Taking of Deborah Logan, because experiencing Alzheimer's as a family member, you feel like you're losing that person to something else, and in that one it was an actuality. Another one was The Quiet Ones, as a metaphor for like repressing that inner demon, when in fact it, in that it's again a reality. And American Haunting, where they think she's possessed and she's repressing that abuse. A lot of times it's that metaphor for repression or hiding something that we're afraid is going to overtake us, and horror is that perfect venue to just blow it up.
I think that the common and easiest answers for it is with possession, it tends to be the first thing that comes to mind, that it's loss of self or loss of control, which doesn't necessarily matter which country you're from. You like to be in control of what you do. I mean, you might be a servant of your country, but ultimately having your faculties and your physical capabilities available to you tends to be important in your day-to-day life. So that notion that you could just be swept off, our consciousness and our sense of self is so important. And I think for the West especially, we are such rugged individuals that it probably in certain ways seems to resonate with us in a even deeper fear-based sense, because we have such a social anxiety about losing out to other people, and the Joneses are wearing the same shirts we are. Is it still okay? Dumb shit like that, but even really getting into deeper spaces, and I feel like possession, that's kind of the first base it gets to.
For me, when I look at possession films, it's usually that familiar figure of the little girl in the white nightgown. It's a loss of innocence. It's a physical change. It's a mental change. It's you are losing this person. And one of the films that I watched this past year, it wasn't a good movie by any means. It's a found footage called Inner Demons, and a young girl was being taken to intervention basically because she had a heroin addiction, but she was using that heroin addiction to cover a demonic possession. She was using the heroin to keep the demon at bay. It was really the age of the girl in question that was the big deal. Is that very delicate phase in female development where you're 13, 14, your parents don't know who you are, you're freaking out about everything, and no one really knows what's going on. You don't know what's going on. And possession is a good way to kind of encapsulate that. You don't know what's going on. What if it is an outside force? So I like that part of it.
All right. Well, then the next question I have is,
Did you answer the question?
Oh, well. I actually am thinking very much along the lines of a writer and an editor. Possession stories for me are about loss of control, and in a story writing setting, it's being accused of a crime you didn't commit but your body did. And it's also about the violation of the soul versus the violation of the body. And it depends on what you believe philosophically and religiously. In some cases, possession is actually a blessing. So you have to look at the culture that the story is being told within. We, mostly as Americans, it is a horrific thing because we are not in control and there's an implied helplessness. But the thing that I really want to talk about next is the violation of the soul in possession. A lot of the people who are possessed, they are not aware of what is going on. And we're going to move from this into the discussion of mental illness. And we'll tread upon that carefully, because I am a very big proponent of not using mental illness as entertainment. So I am at odds with a lot of people in that regard, or not using it as a superpower. But when we're talking about the violation of the soul when it comes to possession, you know, how do you deal, or what are the movies that deal with the fact that the kid or the person has been possessed, they don't remember what has happened, and yet there is that violation to them?
I don't think there's really been any films that have really explored the aftermath of a possession. I saw one at South by Southwest. It's called Ava's Possessions. I don't know when it's coming out. I don't know what they're doing with it. But it was basically about a self-help group for people who had been possessed, and what they were going through, the changes they were going through in their lives, all the police reports they had to file for the stuff they'd done while they were possessed. It's a horror comedy, you know, and it was like drug rehab, where they were like, you know, I really missed my demon. We had a lot of fun. You know, he was a real dude. We had a real connection. You know, so it was very interesting to see, you know, the one side of Ava, the main character, who was trying to separate herself from it, but it's always in the back of her head.
Right.
You know, and then another character that she interacts with, who really wants to get back at their demon. They actually raise the demon again, and she's like, yes, see ya, and goes off to be possessed again. I thought it was pretty cute.
So that to me is actually, rather than a violation of the soul, it is a taking back the scariness.
There's violations, and then there's willing participants.
Yeah, and
you know,
then you're playing with possession like addiction.
You don't normally think of consent with a spirit or with a demon, but it's happened. You know, there's a reason that signature line's there.
It's not the hands that call us; it's the desire. Yeah.
Trent Reznor was right. I think, I'm sure there have been other ones since then that that would strike me, but so many lately, and the movies are not appealing to me in the trailer sense. Like, they lose me at that point in modern times for the most part. But something that I think was really impacting was Stigmata, which some people give a pass, but it's an atheist who has no reason to believe that it's real or that anybody's actually suffered the wounds as believers and become martyrs. That is a really fascinating story. It's also, as a film, it's very viscerally well made. Don't watch it on a phone or with headphones. Make sure there's a speaker system and you can witness everything, because the way things impact and the sound that goes with that, it's really cool, and it kind of gets into her
that's a very
psyche
different kind of possession, though. Like the ones that we typically talk about, like Exorcist and things like that. Those are violent.
Well, but that's just
aversions, and this is violent, but it's also a very passive one, because it's not
holy.
But it is, because it's passing on the word, passing on the true word. It's not like he's there to kill the sow.
But in a certain sense, it is a violation of her personal belief.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
There are versions, I don't want to say which ending, but there is an ending where she doesn't live through it either. So some could say that's a violation, that she ends up dying out of the interruption in her life. So that, That one was really jarring in a way, and you're talking about the person not being aware of it. She comes out of that multiple times, you know, and finds that somebody wrote Aramaic, and that's her, and there's no reason for her to know that. So there is an obvious divorce that seems to be consistent with that, and I would even question in phrasing it that way, if we say there's that much of a crossover, or if it is a puppet master kind of thing where the body is doing these things and obviously something gets in there, but is the soul really even contracted in that because they don't even know what has happened?
Are they stained, or are they just locked away and the stain is imprisonment, helplessness?
Yeah, like someone just gets kicked into the back seat and then all of a sudden they're driving again. They're like, wait a minute, oh, this wasn't where I was.
As far as destruction of the soul, I'm going to go with the obvious exorcist and the possession, because our children are the things that we consider to be the most pure, the most innocent. We always talk about children as innocent, and it takes these children and it completely perverts them. They're doing things that we would never expect from a child. You know, the masturbation scene, the things she's saying, her mother's completely just horrified. And yes, it's possession, but it's turning the thing we hold most dear into a monster. It's making us afraid of our own children. And actually, my favorite of all the ones where children have been possessed is actually an episode of the television series Angel. The son is possessed. He's terrorizing the family. He's attacking his sister. They finally exorcise it, and the demon says, "Thank you," because that child was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Are our children really that innocent? Is there more to fear here than what's possessing that character?
Then that leads into the question of when people write zombie fics, they're usually going against, or having zombie movies, they go against the consumerism or the man, or who they're trying to talk against something going on in society. What is it that possession movies are working against? And I think personally, people love possession movies because they are not responsible. And in our society, we are very much responsible for everything. We are OCD. We are control freaks. We react badly when to change, and yet sometimes the stifling. We have to do these things. We want to break out. It is a relief to let go of control, even though that is a horrific thing to be helpless. It's rather like the Cthulhu mythos. One of the big things with them is they were insane. They didn't know what they were doing. And that, I think, is where what we're talking about is, where do you draw the line? Who is responsible for the horrific thing? How do you tell? And you're right, there are almost nothing about the aftermath. Fallen is a great movie for that. You never really know what happens in the aftermath of being possessed.
Is everybody has this ugly side, this dark side, this I could just push that person into the subway train part of you. And with possession movies, it's what if that escaped? What if my ugly side, my dark side became my outside? What if everybody saw these demons and they became who I am? And as far as aftermath, I think the best movie in dealing with aftermath is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. They take all these things she remembers and like, well, here's an irrational explanation, to not be believed, to have to be held accountable for something that you were not responsible for.
Matt, any comments?
That is such a hard, the way you put it is crippling.
Well, I can shift on.
It's brilliant. It's just really hard to answer.
Yeah, can we come back?
Sure. At this point,
because I know that when awful things happen, placing blame is something that we need to do, because you need to have that reason for that to happen. I think that's why I like possession films so much, because there is no reason. You don't have to be a bad person to be possessed. You don't have to be anything.
Or sometimes you need it to be something outside our control that did the bad thing, and we bind together to fight that thing that's outside our control. In a lot of possession movies, people bind together to fight the bad thing, and in some of the possession movies, they break apart, and it is actually frequently used for a metaphor for a child dying. The marriage will either survive and be that much stronger, or they will blame each other and it will break apart. I guess what I'm going to do right now is open it to questions. question.
Yeah. So when you said who's to blame, I'm a little bit fuzzy on that. I just don't necessarily think that there is anyone to blame for that, because someone said it doesn't matter if you're a good person, bad person, you know, it's really out of your control.
Well, the blaming is, I got possessed and I murdered her. And then I came back. She's still dead. Who's to blame?
So are you talking about accountability then?
Accountability, blame. And it's, a lot of the stories are the possessed person did something wrong.
Right.
And the person who is innocent is having to pay the price or somehow exonerate themselves.
I mean, is that maybe why it focuses on children so much? Because children aren't really culpable for anything except...
Well, they are perceived as
Big
innocent,
children.
but frankly, kids have no morals.
I was just going to say bad parents, but...
Well, they also
You do have to be taught to share. You do have to taught, and even, you know, with or without any religious implications
Yes.
behind it, you have to be taught that there are people that aren't you, and you know, you might even need to share some of your things that you got because that's the way of the world.
I think children are culpable. They have to be sweet. They have to be good. They have to listen to their elders. They have to speak when spoken to. I mean, there's a lot of expectations on children to, you know, you have to be this sweet little thing that, you know, impresses my friends and all that kind of thing. But not all children are like that. I mean, I was a little kid watching horror movies and running around my brothers getting dirty, and I know my mom wasn't a big fan of that, but there's an idea of what we have as for what a child should be. And I think there's a lot of expectations on children.
I wanted to try and see if people think, like, I don't want anybody to be recorded and feel bad about it, but I mean, are there people in this audience, like in this room, that are atheist or have a religion that has no devil character, therefore like demon possession doesn't mean anything to you? Like, do these movies still have validity because of the threat to other human beings and you just identify with that? You know, and that, like, I'll never know what it feels like to have a baby, but I can get that it's painful and I get the connection with a child, so that I don't have one doesn't mean I don't get it or that I can't, you know, identify with it.
I think it's the interesting aspect of whether it's a mental break in them as opposed to a real possession. It's like you were saying, it's their dark side. It's just them being bad and then blaming the supernatural, unless the movie really goes through to clearly show that there is supernatural, and then you just buy into the world building of the world.
So then you enjoy the fantasy,
Yeah.
regardless of where others are genuinely scared it might happen to them because it really can happen.
Personally, I don't believe in those things. I don't believe in demons or the devil. I don't believe in that stuff. But
But
like,
you're intrigued by the genre, just
I'm not intrigued. There are many of those movies, like I was mentioning, Taking of Deborah Logan, that terrify me. I think the scariest thing in this world, like the best horror movie of the year was still Alice. That is the most horrific thing that could happen to you, is to lose your mind. You work so hard with these memories and the things that you learn, and to completely lose it. And that's what a possession movie is, to have everything that you are taken away from you. That's horrific. It doesn't have to be about something I believe in as far as demonology.
Sure.
Just the idea of what that person's experiencing. I can empathize with what they're going through.
And you were...
Yeah, I'm just religious to whatever the book or movie tells me is going on in there. I believe what that is, because it's not reality, I know that, but I will believe whatever that is for their world.
You accept the word.
I'm not like Catholic, but I love Stigmata. I believed all that when I watched Stigmata, because that's what that world said. And
yeah, it's a well-told story,
So-
and where religious stuff's approached.
I don't believe in
It shouldn't
demons,
matter.
but I believe in the Necronomicon when I watch Army of Darkness or Evil Dead. You know, I believe in it then, yes.
There have been times in my life where I've kind of been floored by an outer party, so to speak, somebody that a movie is not quote unquote made for. I ramped on for years about how great American Beauty is. I still think it's a fantastic movie, but probably 6-7 years after it came out, there was a gay black man that told me how that movie had nothing for him. It had like none of that lifestyle at all resonated with him. I'm like, huh. Okay.
Sorry, average white dude, that's your movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's something to be said for the daughter, for the mother, with trying to identify with females, and from the spot where they make movies for me or about me all the time. But I don't make heroes out of movie characters anyway. But which is my luxury, that I don't need to do that. But I'd like to think that you shouldn't have to be that person to accept and identify with that and want them to succeed, in that it registers with you. I think, I don't know, humanity.
Let's talk about tropes. The favorite different tropes. There wasn't a possession. It was mental illness, or it wasn't a possession. Somebody was gaslighting. They were being drugged, or it actually is a possession. I know you both took notes on tropes.
I don't know about tropes specifically. I know what I like watching.
And we can talk about tropes and movies that did them right, and movies or books that did them wrong. So I know both of you took a lot of notes. So let's start with Hayley.
As far as the ones, I really like the ones where it's a much more complex than simply somebody got possessed by something, let's get rid of it. Beloved, as far as books go, is by far probably my favorite one. It's just so complex. I mean, you can look at it from 1,000 different ways, and the best part about it is they never give you an answer. You can believe that this person is, possessing people and controlling them, or you can look at it 1,000 different ways. I also really like Stir of Echoes. They made a movie of that, but Richard Matheson is amazing and one of the best authors. And that one took it somewhere else. I mean, a lot of these end up the same way, where there's an old priest and a young priest, and same thing over and over again. And that's what really tires me out with some of these, is because I feel like it's so easy to do what The Exorcist has done, because The Exorcist was phenomenal, but I don't need to see somebody else's remake of The Exorcist. I've seen The Exorcist do something different, show me something different. Stir of Echoes did that. It took that and it turned it into using this possession to solve a crime, and it was wonderful.
I tend to like possession movies that kind of stray away from, like, The Exorcist is my favorite movie of all time, of all movies. But movies that go away from that in a different vein. I enjoy possession films from different religions, like The Possession. Jezebel was voodoo related. I really enjoyed that, even though it was kind of shitty. I really, as much as everybody hates it, I love Constantine.
I actually really liked it. I didn't actually consider it to be the comic. That was a good movie.
It was fine. It was fine. I mean, even silly things like Dead Silence, where she possessed the ugly dolls. It's one of those things that I really like seeing it step away from that Catholic, like the heavy Catholic message and the heavy mainstream religion message. So I really enjoy partaking in the other side. The possession, in particular, being Jewish, was a fantastic
really
one. I loved the exploration of that mythology, because no one ever gets to see that.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic to see it. So
I
really enjoy that.
I like religious based ones, even especially when it's outside the norm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and you never get to see it. It's a very, very unique perspective, because Catholic possession is easy.
It is easy.
I think I forgot to mention it, but the
priest
freaking Shining. I mean, that's just, that's a
and see, that's possessed by a space and madness and so
yeah,
many other
and
things.
again, it's like that. In that one, he's trying so hard to be a better man. He's trying so hard to put the alcoholism.
Yeah, but in that
him,
case,
and
possession
to be a
was
good dad.
alcoholism.
And it
Yes.
took the things that he was trying to press the most and used them to hurt the people he cared about the most. And that's terrifying, whether you believe in that stuff or not. The idea that the demons of your past can make you hurt the people that you love it's awful.
And it's with The Shining in particular, possession equals addiction.
Well, I mean, there's differences too between demonic possession and then spirit possession, like ghost possession, and not specifically something religious, but a vengeful spirit or whatever. Like Jezebel is a ghost. Dead Silence is a ghost.
And I think that's what's great about it, because I think if you are someone who struggles with alcoholism, you can relate to that feeling of, I'm not in control here, it's driving me, I'm possessed by this addiction. You can read that, you may have never experienced ghosts, but you know how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been a long time since I've read it or even watched it, for that matter, but I mean, does it even give a determinate answer that there's not, because all the woman in the tub, like, there are a number of deaths that were previously experienced in the building.
It is
right?
spiritually related.
So it's a combination of the two, I think, at the least. And that somebody who
he was
has
a fertile field for being fucked with.
Yeah, someone who's got the soil is already half rotten.
He was ready to go.
The barrier was not meant to be crossed.
And that's another trope, is the already tainted soul that opens the door.
Well, I think that's the more to the point when it comes to spirit possessions, like ghost possessions. They're looking for that little way to get in, whereas demonic possession just like, you're mine, bitch.
Well, even before they went there, even Danny had a little bit of possession thing going on.
That's not a possession.
It would channel through him to talk.
Possession. It's a good.
Well,
And he's not here
part too,
right
'cause They
now.
were using the person they thought was spiritually weak to get the person that was strong, the shining.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. Sleep, really good follow-up book about Danny growing up.
And as an alcohol.
I was gonna say, guess what he uses to try and
And
hide the
also
voices.
A more unique vampire novel than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so questions before I go on to the next one? Okay.
Did you set the soundtrack? Because it's
About who does it wrong and why.
my absolute, the thing I hate the most. And it happens in so many good movies where I'm like, you had me, but you have a great possession movie and at the end, guess who's still possessed and you didn't know? Like, it happened in Deborah Logan. It happens in the end, like, so many of them. And unless it's something that's part of the ending, like The Exorcist, where he chooses to have it go inside him, he sacrifices the girl. But it's the one where they think they've defeated the evil, and somebody else is still
that's the
possessed.
slasher return
and they
scare.
look at the camera and they smile. I am so sick of that.
It's also The Reaping. I thought The Reaping was a beautiful, beautiful movie until the very
It's just a
last
cheap
30
ending.
seconds, where basically they intimate that, yeah, she was possessed the whole time, and now you are totally fucked, and I'm going to be right here along with you. And I was just like, that invalidated the whole movie for me. The worst trope for me, and it happens with so many serial killers and possessions, is you go through this entire story, there's this whole journey, there's sacrifice, you beat the bad guy. Oh, no, you didn't. Fuck you and fuck this movie, nothing changed. And
Look who's evil now.
We might make a sequel.
It works in the musical, but
Yeah, and yes, it's a moneymaker for some people, but as a trope, if things have not changed by the end of the movie, besides some people are dead, it's not a good movie to me. I mean, you have to, if you're going to defeat it, really defeat it.
That's just slapping out an ending because you couldn't think of something.
Yeah, or, oh, look, we made some money.
maybe there'll be a sequel.
You have a question?
Yeah, on that thought that you guys were expressing, how did you feel about The Fallen?
The Fallen, I feel like they are an exception to the rule because the very first thing he says is, "This is the story about the day I died," and I
Almost
love
died.
a good bookend, and that was a good bookend.
No, he told you
because-
they set expectations, and it was
Yes.
reader.
And then you subverted those
wonder.
expectations because you think you're talking to Denzel Washington. Okay, Denzel Washington's gonna die at the end of this movie, and I don't like knowing the ending, but to subvert that and it's in the cat, that was fantastic.
And it
That song
was.
still
Do
fucks me
something
up, by the
different
way.
with it.
Every
You
time I
can
hear
do
a song,
the
I'm like,
paranormal thing, but make it your own. Do something different with it,
It is
and you can make
almost
something
that.
everybody hates amazing.
But it's also about, if you're going to set that expectation and you have the narrator, and the narrator basically tells you the end of the movie on the first line. I'm going to tell you about the story of the day I almost died. Almost.
Yes.
And it wasn't said in Denzel Washington's voice. And, I got caught by that movie. I got caught hard. Because I was just like, oh yeah, oh man, he's really sacrificing for this. This is great. And then the narration starts up again, and you are reminded. It brings it full circle. It bookends it, and it's.
And I'm not a big fan of voiceovers, but that was just a chilling ending.
That was
That last
well,
line.
Also, it's within the genre of the religious demonic possession, that they're basically immortal within a very, very, very small the
finite amount of time.
What was it? 5.
Can't be
the
without a
breath-
body for a certain amount of time, but it's very short.
It's very short, but the body is. We were all
Living
humanists
body,
at that
anything.
point. We did not consider animals worthy of possession, and that was us. That was a trick on us, and it was a trick. But
But
it
it
was a
makes
good
sense because
trick.
it's that entity's story. It's like they were really the protagonist all along. We were.
Well,
Mhm.
we were in.
Yep.
Anti-hero.
Antihero. They were the antagonists, but they was the
Case of
antagonist
It's the
story.
Deadpool of horror movie.
Yeah.
Well, it's breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience.
Yeah, it was, and I enjoyed it. But every time I've seen it since, been there, done that. I
Just
get
never
bored.
listen to that Rolling Stones song the same again.
Never ever.
And that was the thing I was talking about, that they don't follow up on the possessions, you don't, they basically talk about the kids not remembering things and acting scared, but you don't actually follow any of those people to find out if they were lying or if they've been affected or, you know.
And since we talked about bad endings, and I don't want to spoil this for you, but I think my favorite ending was, if anyone's seen The Last Exorcism, the ending to that one, that was, to make me have to remember something from the very beginning of the movie that I thought was stupid, that I thought was just filler, that's awesome. I love that.
Talking about bad things?
Yes, we were talking about
Okay.
bad tropes that drive people
I
mad.
hate easy exorcisms. Easy exorcisms piss me off. The Conjuring. Patrick Wilson couldn't exercise his fucking shorts. Give me a break. It was just the most arrogant exorcism I've ever seen. I was just sitting there like,
That was so heavy-handed, too. That whole movie was so heavy-handed.
no fun. Hated it.
A lot of Bible thumping, I thought, in that movie.
Well,
And very anti-witch.
Witch shaming. Hooray.
Yeah.
Need more of those movies.
well, that is also coming to, what's this, what are the
I have one more of bad exorcism.
all right.
I'm gonna finish. I don't know if anybody saw Deliver Us from Evil. I liked it. I love Scott Derrickson. I love him to bits. He's a wonderful man. But Deliver Us from Evil, it fell so flat for me in the end because this exorcism, it followed the exact steps of the exorcism. And then he was doing it in Latin, but the demon was not Latin or speaking a Latin from a Latin speaking country or something, being familiar with it. It was a Middle Eastern demon, so that was stupid. And then he was talking Spanish and like, wait, that would be even dumber. So by the end, I was just pissed off, and I was just like, just focus on the doors, it'll be fine. So, I mean, that's lazy exorcisms are my least.
And also
favorite thing.
not actually doing the research to make things right.
Exactly.
Well, horror stories are basically the modern day Grimm's fairy tales. What's the moral of the story for possession movies?
Shit happens.
In some cases, yes, that is in fact true.
Life isn't fair.
Life isn't fair.
We aren't in control. I think that's the biggest thing, is that we aren't in control. Yes, we built up these wonderful selves and these wonderful ivory towers, and we have all of our, awesome things. But tomorrow, you could be possessed.
Like you said, there are new urban legends, and with a lot of them, like The Shining, and a lot of those ones that deal with your inner demons, it's like you need to deal with your shit, or it's gonna overtake you. You need to deal with those inner demons because they're just gonna completely absorb you.
So
It's
personal
definitely the
responsibility.
smashing of ego.
Yeah.
You
But
can't
at the
just
same
stuff it in the
time,
past. You can't shove it into a closet. It's gonna come back.
especially, but I think with the religious ones, it's you have to trust in the higher power. The devil exists, and therefore God exists, and therefore you must trust. You must obey. You must
Obey.
and trust. You must give of yourself. You are being possessed, or you're forcibly giving up of yourself. Well, the way to solve that is you are to give up of
And
yourself.
what the frickin' exorcist? Don't play with a Ouija board.
Oh,
Who the hell gives a kid a Ouija board anyway?
It used to be a big thing. There was a
I had one. I had a Ouija board when I was a kid.
I know, it's a game.
It's
Parker Brothers makes them, so.
They're now making pink ones.
Oh.
yes, they are.
Just for
There's
girls.
one for the Supernatural TV
Ouija
show.
board.
Yeah.
Have you seen the mouse pad?
The mouse
Yes,
pad?
there is a mouse pad, and I just.
You don't use that. What are you calling? Now you're looking
I
for
like
porn.
to
but
say
you're
it.
not.
See, that would actually be a really funny possession.
Where's the pen? I need a pen.
Seriously, we should have a series of you summon something into your computer or into you. Actually, that is a new thing that's happening. Is they're doing technology being possessed by
There was
creatures and spirits.
a
And,
short story by Stephen King that was about that, where the ghost infected the computer.
well, there's.
I watched the Pulse movies
The
last year
Pulse.
to try and prep, and I was
Yeah.
totally displeased with the Japanese and the American version. I'm like, wow, these are
Yeah.
both distasteful in their own way.
So effective when you need to get to sleep.
Has there ever really been a crossover where there is the question of one versus the other, where it's drawn into question whether it is a ghost versus a demon, where like both those discussions actually happen in one movie versus everybody in that world completely believing one or completely believing the other?
Not that I can think of. I think it's usually very demarcated between the two.
Which
Because
seems weird.
There's different approaches to each one.
Right, that's what I mean. Like if it's a ghost, now your book is useless.
The battle you're talking about, and again, I'm a Buffy fan, so I always go back to Buffy. But in Buffy, they had a demon, and in their spirituality, they believe that vampires are the hosts of these demons.
Right.
And so he, the demon that's going around possessing different people, you're marked with this tattoo and you get possessed by the demon, he takes it on because he knows that the demon inside of him could probably kick its ass, and it does.
Well,
I think
there's also the whole
that is the main thing with spirit possession versus demonic possession. Demonic possession is fought with religion, with the religion that pertains to that demon, that particular demon. But spiritual possession, like in The Conjuring, you have to destroy something related to that ghost. So it's still a very personal thing instead of like a blanket religion.
Like help it move on somehow.
Yeah, you have
I feel like a lot of them
give it
set
some
you up with
closure
the
so it can
rules.
go.
The rule, like, they'll tell you from the beginning, okay, in this one, you're going to need a religious exorcism. You're going to need to destroy an object. You're going to need to burn the body. They tell you what the rules are.
And bad ones don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like, sometimes I like the ones that it's a question: is it an AI or is it a spirit, or is it both, or was a spirit that has been subsumed by an AI, or was an AI subsumed the spirit?
You lost me at AI.
Like Haley Joel Osment is taking over.
No, I'm actually thinking of the Cell.
At least they didn't get turned into a walrus.
Oh.
The Cell was
that was more of like a zombie one.
I thought it was like there's a computer virus that is possessing humans, or is it a computer virus that's a spirit that? So the Cell was one of those. It was a classic Stephen King ending, as it didn't actually answer any questions. But I really liked the book.
Or he kind of gets to the beginning, he's like, fuck it.
It was a fear of technology, and possession of yourself being possessed by technology, and that's another possession story.
He doesn't even own a cell phone, from what I've read, because he's afraid of.
They have that Cell
no
book,
idea.
cell phone book.
I can see that being a replacement wave of having like technological infiltration to lose yourself into that. And I mean, obviously there have already been failed attempts at it.
It's already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, where it could happen in
A lot of themselves in technology.
Because does
I
anybody
mean,
feel like it's already
especially I feel like with the online gaming community, I've heard of stories where people have completely neglected their children because they were so obsessed with the game. They were so obsessed with what they were doing on their computer.
They didn't restock their own fridge because they were growing so much food in Farmville.
What I would like to see, and I see it touched on in American Horror Story, but like you were saying, in some religions that is a gift. Like in Voodoo, they ask to be possessed by different spirits and gods, and that is an extreme gift. And you're
That whole
considered
Pablo section in Coven.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
What they touched on in American Horror Story with that, I would like to see a movie where they do that. I mean, so much has been done over and over again. Don't give me another Exorcist. Show me something different. That's what I want to
Exactly,
see.
that's what I want to see.
I believe it's Coven.
Somebody go make that movie.
So you want to see an American movie? Because I don't want that to fall on deaf ears.
It just did.
It's about the worst horror movie ever made. It's somebody.
You're really selling it.
Hollywood's watching right now. The
Making a
picture's out
dollar.
there.
All right, any more questions before I ask the next question? So we have 4 minutes before I'm going to... 15. Well, we're actually supposed to stop before the end of the hour. Nobody does, but I'm going to because I'm taking control. The possession movie that I liked was that willingly was possessed was I believe it was Buffy. The 7 generation, no, sorry, it was X-Files. X-Files did the 7 generations of Satanists, and a lot of people, they were just like, oh yeah, okay, we have to light the candle, yeah, we have to do the chant. Well, the woman who was possessed was a Satanist who brought the demon into her so that she could punish these non-believing Satanists.
Mm.
And it was a question of, okay, was she just crazy? Did she actually possess these people? Did she turn into the snake that ate the other guy? I thought that was actually a really interesting story of demonic possession, but it's a willing demonic possession.
Well, that almost brings us full circle into that question of is it a real thing or is it a justification method?
Yes.
You know, and in the storytelling, of course, there are times where the author is doing this thing to try and make you think about this particular aspect, and like with Devil even like that, our base natures that take over when we're not sure if we can trust everybody or if we'll live through this thing and who we might have to kill to not die, that kind of stuff. But if there's the notion that it's just not valid at all, I lost my thought with the stupid elevator.
Well, it's all right. A lot of possession stories come down to what's the moral of the story? Why was this person possessed? What did people sacrifice to get them unpossessed? Were they successful? And what does it extrapolate into reality? You know, control, loss of control, willingness to touch the divine, to be touched. Okay, you got it.
Not at all true. That's why. Just that we can't explain.
Yeah.
You know, everything is somewhat codified in the religious sense, and there's the attempt to try and get everything into nice little boxes for what will happen in the spiritual realm and getting a grip on that. But beyond just even losing a sense of self, but just being that there are things we don't get in the world, you know, and almost so many things that were evil or were magical are just now scientifically so. They were so then, but people didn't get it. And even I was going to ask if we wanted to get into the dialogue, that it feels like it's changed, where there isn't a lot of butt of the joke stuff with mental illness, because that is becoming codified in a way that more people get it, and even socially, more people understand, oh, they may have a problem. You're not saying that's that crazy child. Don't talk to that crazy child. Like, no, that child has, you know, Asperger's. It's just not going to, that child's not going to feel sorry for you for any reason. They'll just understand what you tell them, and that's it.
Well, I don't know if any, I cannot think of any specific movies off the top of my head that involve, it's not possession, they're insane.
The Exorcist, they go through that all in the beginning, which is what's the most terrifying part for me.
And Deborah Logan up until the very end, it's just normal Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
But something interesting in in all of those possession movies is it's like the entity that possesses them is possessing the ones that they consider to be weak, because children can't fight back.
Right.
This woman's, old people, people who are spiritually weak. These are how these people are painted in these Western horror movies. Whereas, like I said, in voodoo, you have to be incredibly strong to be allowed the gift to be possessed. And
I think that's also why I went towards Deliver Us from Evil, because it was soldiers in Afghanistan that were possessed and brought this thing back with them. Like that. And then it ruined it for me in the end. But, but it was a very different way to do it. I haven't seen male possession films in a very long time. I mean, possession.
It doesn't really happen very often.
It doesn't, because it's not anything that people go, oh my god, that poor guy.
I'm starting to think like American Horror Stories and the new Simpsons, because like American Horror Story did it.
Well, what do you want to see more of than possession stories?
Like I said, the voodoo, I'd like to see it used in movies where it's a source of strength, where people are asking for it, something different. Where people are being victimized and
it might be a really interesting
around.
Story to have two different entities and
combine things. Even we see so much of these like revenge movies and slasher movies. Get yourself possessed and go do that. And go
possessed revenge.
But they're actually starting to do books like that, but it's not religious. It is AI based or technology based, where somebody is able to download their brain or their thoughts into another body.
You guys see that show Jekyll?
Yeah.
Where he switches into different people, and he kind of goes out and gets revenge for his other self.
Yeah, like those movies, a lot of those movies where someone's being, like your revenge movies, someone feels so weak and stuff to like take on this powerful energy to go off and do the things that they physically didn't think they could do.
Valkyries are a very common thing where the man or woman would call the Valkyries to help them get revenge, knowing that at the end they were going to die. So the Valkyries would possess the person and go with them to go get revenge.
Yeah, these are the books and movies I want to see. I want to see something different. I don't want to keep seeing more Exorcist.
I would love Apocalypse movie. I want that shit.
There's one exorcist you just can't help it. Stop making it.
A lot of shamanism. There's a book, Michael Harder, he's an anthropologist that says it's common in shamanism throughout the world. I haven't read anything else about it to really know if that holds any water. But yeah, he says that a big part of it is sort of calling animal spirits and getting them to sort of possess the shaman and acquire these animal spirits that they come to you. And I've done that myself.
Grim just did a show on that.
TV is doing a lot as far as exploring, like really pushing the genre lines.
Not exactly a possession movie, but more of somebody scripting an LSD trip. But it kind of knocks on certain archetypes. Was Altered States, came out in 1980.
Yeah, I have that.
Which was kind of interesting because it kind of took that entire, this is the Catholic paradigm of possession, but now we've introduced ayahuasca into it, and then there was these archetypes of the guy actually going to hell, actually experiencing heaven, actually figuring out that, you know, he had taken this drug and it had somehow opened up himself, not necessarily as to be possessed, but he was now a conduit for all these different influences that were around him. And at the end, it was his struggle of, was he strong enough to become grounded again, or was he going to be simply a unconscious conduit for all these influences that have taken over, basically.
He became a primordial caveman. That's why he was throwing rocks and dogs and things.
And another kind of possession that I don't see as much, but they do on Supernatural very well, is angelic possession. You know, they're just like, well, this is for the good of mankind, so suck it up, buddy. You're gonna get an angel.
Unless you're doing Dominion, in which case it's
possession of
dead bodies.
I do love Castiel.
It's been kind of it's been a buzzword for this con, but you know, it follows as almost an inverse situation where like you are just the button. Well, I mean that these other possessed things that presumably were people, you know, the vagary of it actually in certain ways that is appealing to me in a way that they're not trying to do any form of proselytization or just say like, oh, as a matter of fact, there is a guy, he's 2 towns away and he knows everything and he'll be here in like 15 minutes, we already called him, and boom, like we have the solution and now we just have to fight together and be a family.
That's the nice thing about vagary, you can really make it anything.
You can, and I think there's room for that with the.
That wasn't a positive comment.
I think the possession thing is. I feel it's played out with how many of them are there.
Yeah,
right
I want to see less possessed.
So I'd rather see something we don't know what it is.
Okay, so it's about time to wrap up, and what I'm going to ask each person to do is, you know, pick their stuff, tell us where you're going to be, and any last word.
WatchPlayRead.com, we review everything that you can watch, play, and read. It's pretty self-explanatory. And on Horror Addicts, we review all things horror. We do really funny skits. It's great. If you would like a card, they're right here.
Okay.
Cards.
The Horror Honeys are at table number 1, which is kind of rad.
You're number 1. We're number 1.
We have a great website written by 11 women. We write all day, every day. Everyone has their own specific day. It is actually Supernatural Sunday tomorrow, so we have lots of Supernatural articles up tomorrow. I've got stickers and buttons here, so please come and get some.
And their podcast's pretty rad, and they talk about a lot of stuff that comes out.
I'll give you a card if I can have a button.
Of course. Oh my God.
And I'm Jennifer Brozek. I'm at table 204 with Evil Girlfriend Media and Apocalyptic Productions. Come by and say hello. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.